Hi, my name is Arturo Ramos. I work for the Foothills Library in the teen department. And today we're actually going to be discussing crystal growing for teens. So yeah, let's get to it. Okay, let's go ahead and get started on growing these crystals. So the first things that you are going to need, you're going to need alum. Basically, you can get this, it's a spice at any grocery store. It's in the spice aisle. The actual chemical name for this is aluminum potassium sulfate. You'll need a clean 250 milliliter beaker or a jar. I'm getting very precise with how much I'm putting in, but usually you can eyeball it. It's about half of this jar here. You also want a saucer or a shallow dish. Luckily for me, I have a plastic petri dish that I'm using. You also want some other jars as well. I have the bigger jars here that you can use, and you're going to use it later on in the experiment to actually start growing your crystal. You also need fishing line, so you can hold the crystal on and everything inside the jar, and then you're gonna hang it. You can probably use a pencil. Luckily for me, I have like these small chopsticks that I'm gonna be using. I have some other ones here as well that we will be using to hang the crystal in some water so that it can start growing with the mixed solution. So let's get started. So basically what you're gonna end up doing in one of the beakers, you're gonna slowly add about a 1/4 cup of aluminum potassium sulfate. So 1/4 cup, just about there. So you want 1/4 of that. And then you're gonna add some hot tap water. Luckily for me, I have a jar of hot tap water here. And you're gonna mix that solution together. And you want about just over 150, so that's about like half the jar there. And then you're just gonna start mixing the solution. Luckily I have like a small little, you're gonna mix the solution together. And then you wanna mix it to the point where it starts clearing up. And you can see it's starting to clear up just a tad more, which is good. So I think that's good enough right there. But there's still chunks at the bottom. So what we're gonna do instead, what you can do, if you want, I'm going to, you can actually just pour it in here. But I'm gonna just use the coffee filter just to filter it. And you can just use the edge. And you wanna fill it just a bit. Once it's all filled up, you can use, usually if you have a bigger jar, you can use it, and you're gonna let this sit. Now what will end up happening is you're gonna let that sit overnight. In the morning, after you wait, you'll start getting quite a bit of the crystals that will start forming into smaller crystals. Once you do get the small crystals growing in the small dish, and they look about good size, you wanna choose the biggest one. Luckily for me, about this one will be the biggest size I have. There's a little bit other ones. You just want to go through it and find the biggest crystal, because what we're going to do is at this point we're going to get an even bigger jar, and we want to fill that solution we just made. We're going to fill up this jar about halfway, and I'll show you an example. I have the jar here, so I have it already filled about halfway with the same jar I was using. And then at that point, half the cup already has the hot water, but at the rest of the cup, we want to fill in this solution as well. So we'll start filling in the solution. Usually you're going to use about just about like a half a cup as well. You just want to mix it just a tad. If you have anything to close the lid or anything like that, you could shake it so it mixes well. Once it's there, you're going to grab the biggest crystal that you have. You'll tie it on, this is where your fishing line comes in. You're gonna grab a piece of the fishing line. You're gonna tie it around one of your pencils. And then you can see that I made here that the crystal is hanging from it. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna put it in the water on top of it, so it's hanging inside the water and the solution. So now what will end up happening is the solution mixture is gonna start grabbing onto the crystal and growing it even bigger. You can have somebody help you tie the fishing line to the seed crystal, because these are the seed crystals that we're going to be growing. You can use tweezers if you want. My fingers were, luckily I was able to do it, even though they're a little big, but can't do that. Once it's all done, you want to cover the jar. You can usually use like a paper towel. You want to cover it during the time where it's waiting. So when it's covered, it actually has time to just pick up, start getting into that solution. If you see that the seed is dissolving, because it can happen if the water might be too hot, you want to get it kind of a little warm. If the seed looks like it's dissolving, just lift it out of the jar and then fill it with a new solution. Make sure a new solution, and then recover the jar again. If you see that other crystals are growing in the jar on the bottom of the jar, you want to empty it out. Keep the crystals on the side if you wanted to do it again, but make sure that main seed crystal that we chose is going to be in a new jar by itself. Because what ends up happening, you'll be able to find some crystals about this size. You can see you want to choose that one crystal and that keeps on growing. You want to keep it the only one that's able to grow. You don't want it to compete with any other seed. And the reason why this one's different color, this one's a little pinkish, you can add food coloring to it. And you can see it, this one's kind of the biggest one we got. You can add a food coloring to it. This one I added orange, and it will grow. So the longer you wait, the more it will grow. But what ends up happening is the small crystals that formed in the saucer grew because of nucleation. So basically the alum molecules found each other in the solution and joined together in a crystal pattern. And the other alum molecules continue to join until enough molecules gather together to become the small crystals that we have here. And that's why when you do choose a seed crystal to put in there, if some start growing on the bottom, you want those out because you don't want it competing with the actual seed crystal that we choose so that way it can grow. Other than that, that is it. I hope you enjoyed this program as much as I enjoyed presenting it to you. If you'd like to learn more about the topic, please check out our resources or any of our Yuma County Library resources and catalog that we do have about crystal growing. As for the program, I'll see you next time. Bye.